Hello and welcome to all. I hope everyone is doing fine and is safe. COVID-19 has brought us to a halt, and we are all trying to find new ways via technology to get back to the new normal. This webinar is another step towards that. The title of this webinar is Records and Content Management Anywhere, Anytime in the New Digital Normal. This is jointly presented by Forrester, a leading technology and market research company, and Newgen Software, a global provider of business process management, enterprise content management, customer communication management, and other solutions with a footprint in 66 countries with large mission critical solutions deployed at banks, governments, BPO and IT companies, insurance firms, and healthcare organizations. I am Ruchika Srivastav and shall be your host and the coordinator of this webinar today. Our speakers today are Cheryl McKinnon from Forrester, followed by Arpan Bansal from Newgen Software. Cheryl is a principal analyst who delivers research and advisory services in areas including enterprise content management, content archiving, enterprise file sync, document-centric collaboration, lifecycle management, information governance, and file analytics. She helps every firm for content and collaboration technology capabilities in the age of customer. Arpan is Global Head, Center of Excellence for Government Vertical at Newgen Software Technologies. Arpan is responsible for high-end consulting, product roadmap, and solution delivery. His expertise include consulting for large public sector enterprises on digital transformation. We also have with us Mr. Balaji Chikrale, the Regional Director for APAC region and front face for most of our attendees. His extensive experience of working with business and technology leaders from banks, government, marine, large enterprises in their complex digital transformation, using low-code platforms, BPM workflow, ECM, RPA, and other cognitive technologies. At end of both these presentations, we will be having question and answer session. I request you to type questions in the GoToWebinar question window anytime during the webinar, and I shall take that up at the end of the sessions with our experts. Now it is over to you, Cheryl.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you again for the invitation to be part of the webinar today. So I'll just need to get control so I can display my slides. Wonderful, thank you so much. And we'll begin. Great. And if you could just confirm that you can see my slides, and I'll begin. What we'll talk about over the next several minutes are some of the key trends that are shaping the content and records management markets. We'll then talk a little bit about maturing your approach to the governance of digital information. We'll understand how emerging trends such as AI, machine learning, what we've been calling these intelligent content services, and automation technologies can help underpin this digital workplace that we all engage in today. We'll talk about some of the long-term preservation implications of our digital records, what we've been calling digital fragility at Forrester. And then I'll conclude with some recommendations and turn it back to our hosts at Newgen. So let's talk first about some of the key market trends that are shaping the content and records management market today. I'll start first
Cheryl, sorry to cut you short. We are not able to see your screen as of now.
Thank you. Let me make sure that the sharing is working correctly. Thank you for
Yes,
and can you
now we
confirm?
can see.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for for catching that. So we'll just move forward. We'll talk again about some of the trends that are shaping the content and records management market that we're working in here today. Okay, well, we'll start at a very high level. One of the things that Forrester Research does on an annual basis, we have an entire data and analytics arm, and we do some very large-scale surveys to take the pulse of both technology as well as business decision makers. And these are global surveys that we conduct, understanding where the priorities are, where the tech spend is happening, and what's driving digital transformation across all sectors, including government. When we asked our global technology decision makers earlier this year, what are those top priorities that are really driving your agenda? We found that they were looking to increase their pace of innovation. They were looking to develop or acquire new skills, so keeping relevant and up to date in terms of the resources available to drive their programs. They wanted to deliver their IT projects more quickly. They wanted to align their IT performance metrics to meet the business outcome, so get much more in line with the program decision makers. And the ability to shift resources to those initiatives that improve their customer, or in many cases, their citizen experience. Now, while some of this data was collected before the advent of the COVID-19 crisis, we know that a lot of these factors, the investments that organizations are making pre-COVID, are helping to show which organizations will be more successful in their response to it and the recovery out of it. Those organizations that have been investing in innovation, faster pace and more flexible approach to IT projects, the ability to quickly move and align to business outcomes and the citizen services expected, those are the organizations that will come out of it more successfully. When we think about this new world of content management, we know that we see that there are new use cases that are emerging. There's new demands being put on our technical teams and on the platforms that we rely upon to manage our data, both content, records, and structured data. And these digital business initiatives that we've embarked upon the last several years show that content services, process services, automation, and collaboration are really important in terms of this transition and this shift to digital business. It means that organizations that have made these investments are able to directly support this rapid shift to remote work styles that many of us have had to make. It means that we can embrace what I've been calling our extended enterprise, meaning those external stakeholders such as citizens, other levels of government, our subcontractors, our business partners. All of those are key participants in many of the processes that generate or require managed documents. We also know that we have to keep an eye on the emerging markets, related markets that are rapidly coming into the content management space, particularly as we see the rise of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other forms of automation to help us invest and get the maximum value out of the digital records that we produce and consume. And all of this, of course, must be balanced with all of the privacy, compliance, governance, and security requirements that we see emerging in many jurisdictions. Some of my colleagues in our security and risk research practice keep an eye on how privacy and security are really shaping how we think about the way we govern our information. And we see across the landscape more and more jurisdictions looking to protect the information that they hold about their citizens, about their taxpayers, about the businesses that are operating in their particular regions. And that need to protect those digital records, whether they're structured or unstructured format, becomes more and more important. When we think about our current state and the future that we'll see over the next several months, we also know that our response to the pandemic has accelerated this need to move to digital business, take a digital first approach. Some of the research that we've recently published talks about some of these essential solutions, these foundational technologies that are going to help organizations respond successfully and transition into a return to work, hopefully in the near future. Of course, we have our risk and crisis management technologies, such as business continuity planning, environmental health and safety, risk management. But we also see that content management technologies are also very essential, whether those are cloud-based content management platforms, the repository services that store our digital documents and records, team collaboration so we can work with the right people in the right time, regardless of where they happen to be residing, at home or in a pared down office. And of course, transactional content management capabilities, the ability to manage process, digital signature, capture and extract value out of paper or static format documents. All of these form the digital portfolio that we need to be able to be responsive. When we think about this shift to the new normal over the remainder of 2020, we do recognize that we cannot function without the ability to work with our digital content, the business records that they evolve into, and of course, all of the processes that drive the way that we work with content, those end-to-end workflows to help us accomplish particular program or project objectives. Information workers spend more than a quarter of their time creating, finding, or reading documents. This is data that comes from some of our workforce benchmark surveys, again, large-scale global surveys that we do every year. When we think about why organizations invest in document and records management technologies, oh, I've lost the focus there for some reason. The digitization of business process, as well as employee productivity, are actually the top two reasons that organizations invest in content management technologies. This is data that came from January 2020 when we conducted our annual ECM online global survey. So once a year, I take the pulse of organizations that are investing in content management technologies and understand what their priorities are. We know that organizations that have lagged behind in their digital business evolution are going to have a more difficult time in terms of recovery. We know already that paper is the weak link when it comes to continuity of services and business operations. Let's now speak for a moment about your approach to information governance and how organizations are looking to take some of this governance into their content management programs. I find that it's very interesting that organizations take a bit of a polar approach when it comes to the governance structure of their content management programs. Again, coming from our early 2020 survey, we asked content management decision makers, what best describes the way that you're governing your enterprise content, those digital documents and records? Approximately 30% said that they have a center of excellence or a dedicated program team that makes decisions. And of course, these decisions mean input from line of business leadership, IT decision makers, legal, compliance, and others that are responsible for how that information is collected and preserved. Approximately 15% rely on IT to make decisions about their governance, while 13% have an executive steering committee to help guide their strategy. Another set of data that I think you may find interesting is data coming directly from the records and information management professionals themselves. On a regular basis, we work with the nonprofit professional association ARMA, which is one of the larger records management professional associations in the world. And when we worked with them in late 2019 to ask again about the challenges and trends facing that particular profession, we asked about their ability to restructure or reorganize their records and information management programs. Are they combining them with IT in order to get that holistic approach to information management across its entire life cycle? And we found that about a third of programs had in fact been restructured to support a more strategic approach to information governance. A further 31% plan to act throughout the rest of 2020. We also asked the question about their ability to influence technology decision makers. So as a records manager or information manager, do they feel that they have a voice at the table when they're making strategy decisions or selecting vendors? And 59% reported that yes, they're there at the strategic planning level in their organizations. This is also a very healthy market. We're seeing that investments in both enterprise content management as well as pure play records management are both areas of growth, even in the 2020 environment. If we take a look at the content management, existing programs, approximately 79% expect to continue to improve and expand their programs. So rolling out more seats, modernizing their platforms, looking to build new applications. We're also seeing that approximately 54% of records management professionals expect to continue rolling out their platforms and products over the next year. When we ask about the top challenges that are facing organizations, very interesting to see that this #1 challenge has actually persisted for a couple of years, and that is the sprawl of digital documents. So when we ask the information management professionals, what are those top challenges facing your organization? #1 is the volume of unmanaged digital documents that are sitting outside of the control of the records management professional, followed closely by the lack of IT, compliance, and business stakeholder alignment. So a failure to get their governance strategy agreed to. Let's talk a little bit about some of the innovation and enhancement coming into this market as we speak. This term intelligent content services is one I've been using as basically an umbrella category to describe a range of artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics, and other automation capabilities that we see closely aligned to the enterprise content management technology stack. And as we move into this era of flexible platforms, moving away from legacy, outdated on-premises architectures, the ability to embed services from perhaps your preferred vendor, but also from a range of specialty providers, even some of the cloud providers, is something that we're seeing interest in. So some of the new opportunities we see as these intelligent services come into the market is first off the ability to better connect what might be disparate or siloed systems today. So if you have multiple repositories, perhaps from 2 or 3 vendors, some cloud, some on-premises, the ability to extract information consistently from them is something many organizations have struggled with over the years. Some of these intelligence services to help understand common patterns of metadata or extract similar meaning from content that might be sitting in different locations. These are all opportunities that are more approachable today than they were in years past. We're also seeing interest in surfacing up or finding smarter recommendations. We're seeing a number of technologies that are leveraging underlying graph technologies, knowledge graphs, or connecting the activities, the content, the people together to better see the patterns and make smarter suggestions about what I should read next, or who the subject matter expert is, someone perhaps that doesn't work in my particular division or team. We also are seeing opportunities to start automating some of the policy application. For example, the ability to have a consistent retention policy applied to content, perhaps across multiple systems. Can we use some of this intelligence to recognize the type of record that it is, the metadata around it, the meaning of it, and help suggest ways in terms of securing it or applying various policies to it? We're also seeing organizations, especially as they're transitioning away from on-premises network drives or perhaps moving from older on-premises architectures, the ability to do smarter migrations. Again, extract metadata, understand the meaning, and help automate that migration at scale. Perhaps even recognize that there's duplicate content and suggest areas of lightening the load, reducing the volume before we migrate to more modern systems. When we talk about this shift from older on-premises architectures to today's era of flexible modern platforms, we really are thinking of a services-first architecture. We've been using this term content services for a number of years, and when we think about them, it really means that we're looking at these core capabilities, these foundational services form the basis of what we need in a modern, flexible platform. Repository services, search, metadata, security, everything we need to manage those business records. Of course, we also need the collaborative content services around them. So if we're going to use that content to make it valuable, work with our colleagues, share it perhaps with our contractors, we need secure ways of editing, authoring, and sharing that information. Transactional content services, we know that many of the activities we have process around them that we need to manage and automate where possible. Move to things like digital signature, online forms, again, continuing that path to digital first business. Federation and integration services, we recognize that content doesn't live in a vacuum. We must integrate it to some of the critical line of business applications that also help run our business, whether that's a customer relationship management, enterprise resource planning, or other critical application. But the other thing that's important is that our line of business users, the program owners, the department heads, they have very specific use cases that they need to address, very specific applications they want to be able to deliver quickly to their information workers and better serve the citizens and businesses in their regions. So whether that's employee file management, loan origination, quality management systems, these are all the kinds of applications we're seeing organizations build on top of these flexible, modern platforms. We know that more and more those external stakeholders, contractors, consultants, other agencies or ministries, we need to be able to share digital records and collaborate with them on content on a regular basis. And this is an increasingly important core capability as organizations modernize their content management environments. When we think of public sector use cases in particular, we know that we need shared services around our process and the content that's produced so that we can work with our peer agencies or ministries on shared programs or outcomes. We're seeing the interest in more and more online licensing, permitting applications, getting those external stakeholders to submit documentation, receive a reply. External contributors are core collaborators when we're looking at various kinds of investigative or social services or healthcare use cases. And then, of course, this whole shift to digital correspondence, again, with our stakeholders in our jurisdictions. When we're thinking about some of the modern technologies coming into the content management world, we surveyed, again, our content management decision makers to ask, well, where are you experimenting? Where are you actively using these tools today? Also, where do you have no interest? And interesting, not surprisingly, to see that robotic process automation, RPA, as well as AI technologies from some of the major cloud providers are those emerging technologies that are coming into the content management market with the largest number of early adopters. So we see that right now, approximately half of the program leaders that we surveyed in early 2020 do plan to be using or piloting some of these intelligent content services over the remainder of 2020. We do need to make sure, however, that we're keeping our records and information management teams also up to date and involved in some of these emerging technology use cases or pilots. Today, when we ask the records and information management audience, what kind of capabilities are you putting into your roadmap? We see that 65% are really not doing anything in the near future, with 25% planning to use AI or machine learning for automated retention or other policy application for digital documents. 17% using it to automate the identification or declaration of their digital records. The last topic I want to address is this idea of the fragility of data. When we look at some of the records that are being born digital today, being generated, these have never been in paper format. They've always been in a digital first format. We know that in public sector, many of these records need to persist for many, many years, perhaps 20, 50, even longer. This means we need to think about how we're preserving and capturing those digital records, making sure that we have not just the file, but the context around it to really understand why decisions were made. When we ask the records and information audience, how confident are you that you're going to be able to retrieve those digital records in 15 years? We see that there is a, let's call it a lukewarm level of confidence, with 42% saying that they are confident, but only 2% saying they're very confident. 30% refer to themselves as neutral. 27% have low degree of confidence. But we do need to think about the future. For those of you who are creating digital records that we know will have a lifespan of 15, 20, 50 years, we need to think about preserving and protecting them. What are the right archival ready formats that are intended to last for the long term, that are intended to be future proofed so that we can change our operating systems, the devices, even the office productivity tools, and still have the confidence we can open, view, and use those records long into the future. Nearly 60% of the information managers that we surveyed did not have an actual strategy to preserve their digital records long term. Even though they have a degree of confidence, they're not making particular plans to ensure that it happens. So I'll wrap up with some recommendations and then turn it back to our hosts at Newgen. The first is to recognize that we've entered this next era of content management. We've now moved away from the architectures of the 1990s and early 2000s, those that were designed for the world of on-premises. We know we're solidly in the world of cloud today. And that means that we need to look at modular, flexible platforms that allow us to quickly deliver those web and mobile-friendly applications to help our information workers become more productive. We know that we need flexible tools that are going to help us deploy those applications much more quickly, adapt to agile development and deployment methods. The technology decision makers I talk to on a regular basis, they want these faster to adopt options. They know that they need these modern architectures, API first, services first, the ability to design and deliver applications quickly, meaning weeks or months, not months or years. And I think we also need to take a look at the importance of those external stakeholders, that extended enterprise who has a participant role in our content-rich processes. How do we protect the information, our contractors, our citizens, the businesses in our jurisdiction? How do we protect that information that they entrust to us? Make sure it's shared appropriately. And at the end of that engagement or that program, ensure that it's either archived successfully or deleted securely. And think about strategically preserving that digital information. This is not a call to keep everything indefinitely, but where there are critical documents that do have a long-term, decades or more life cycle, make sure we are being very selective and careful about how we handle it. Thinking about the storage devices, thinking about the file formats, making sure they're ready for the long term. And with that, I will turn it back to Newgen.
Thanks, Cheryl. Now over to you, Mr. Arpan.
Can you see my screen, Ruchika?
Yes, Arpan.
Okay. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for sharing these insights. I'll begin with a quick overview of Newgen. We have about 540 plus customers across 66 countries. We operate, our solutions are deployed across 20 verticals with large and mission critical implementations in BFSI and public sector customers across the globe. We offer software products in the space of enterprise content management, business process management, case management, and customer communication management space. All our products are rated very well in Forrester Wave reports as well as in Gartner Magic Quadrant reports. And possibly we are the only company with all our 4 core product lines featuring into Gartner's Magic Quadrant. In the context of today's discussion, I must tell you that our record management offering is certified for DoD 5015, that is Department of Defense, United States. It is also certified for VERS, which is a prominent record management standard in Australia. It complies with MOREC, which is very prevalent in European businesses. And recently, we have also done a certification for national, which is basically is done by National Archive Oman. So the idea here is to tell you that our record management offering is proven uh, in various different use cases, and I'll expand more on it as we go forward. These are the focus area of my presentation today. My intent is to highlight all the key aspects that can make a huge difference in the success of record and content management program. I will begin with highlighting the importance of platform-centric approach, of course, with the help of Newgen's ECM platform. And the idea here is to create a much larger leverage than just long-term retention or maintaining document repositories. I will share some of the modern technologies that we have integrated in our content management stack. Uh, Take some examples of how these new technologies are helping record managers or content management users and are well set to be proved as a game changer. I would definitely want to talk about user adoption because I think all of us who are working in the record management space would have faced this issue that there is a trade-off between how intuitive or easy to use the system can be for end users. At the same time, record management policies looking at the compliances and the governance requirement can tend to be more and more complex. So we will also share some tips with you in terms of how to balance these two. We will talk about some of the special features that we are building specifically for Singapore and Asia Pacific customers. I would definitely like to talk about in the current situation how our platforms are proving as a great enabler for remote working. What are we doing to take care of risk associated with it in terms of security and privacy? And what are those special features which are coming in very handy while uh, while users are working from their home? And towards the end, I will share some uh, experience that we have acquired while working with global customers as a means of summarizing my presentation. This is a bird's eye view of Newgen's enterprise content management platform. This covers entire life cycle from content creation and capture to review, approval, and long-term retention on a content. Uh, it is built organically. It is homogeneous, well integrated. It covers entire spectrum of content ranging from paper document, electronic document, emails, PDF, special type of documents such as engineering drawing, and to an extent that it also has a means of facilitating long-term archival for social media content. Our multi-channel capture, the first block. So it covers mobile, scan, filing of email from Outlook. Uh, it facilitated online collaboration for real-time authoring of document such as proposal, contract, policies. The middle block that you see are the core building blocks here to store content, create virtual views for better consumption of content, swift searches for easy and fast retrieval of content, uh, content security measures that are available, and also analytics to get better insights into content and content mining. The box at the top represents content workflow and tools to automate business processes. There is a full suite of low code workflow and application development features that are integrated into our ECM suite. On the right hand side, we see options to consume content by users and applications. Device independent, ready to integrate, secure on transit are some key highlights here. The box at the bottom represents the record management features which are there for long term preservation of a record. Uh, Retention rules, disposition policies, federated search, legal hold. These are some of the key highlights that we offer for long-term preservation of records. This platform is powered by some of the modern technologies such as RPA to basically seek repeated and mundane activities and automate them using bots. AI ML driven analytics to enrich metadata, find personal information, do auto classification and gain better insights. All modules going to the mobile features first. There's a range of special features like geosensing, uh, ability to capture video and audio, enrich metadata, uh, functionalities for record management to take stock or do reconciliation of stock, read barcode, and make a file plan assignment through mobile. Uh, the suite can integrate very well with social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp. There are extended capabilities available to simplify the work for end users and to bring in more efficiency in the system. Last but not the least is to the ability to support all the modern deployment architectures. All the components are cloud native. They can be deployed on any private or public cloud. Uh, they can be deployed on government clouds as well. They inherently support uh, microservices, containerization, DevOps, and means of new modern deployments. Let me just talk more about how these new technologies and some of the use cases that are helping simplify work for record management and content management users. We have integrated our mature artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithm with content management use cases to simplify some of the manual works like auto classification, metadata enrichment. Classification and categorization can be done both on the basis of layout of a document as well as on the basis of content. These are also quite useful to detect personal and sensitive information in a document, using which organizations can better comply with Privacy Act. On the upstream front, we are integrating sentiment analysis in use cases like service request management to automatically guide assignments of workflows. And these technologies are now transitioning from potential to performance, and we see them getting better and better every day. Our attempt is to make entire process of classification, rule, and policy enforcement totally straight through. RPA capabilities are built into our platform, and from scripting to maintaining and controlling bot, all can be done within the environment itself. And along with some of the traditional use cases, we are also working on implementing it to the areas like record filing, content mining, doing periodic maintenance activities. And as we all know that it is unavoidable today to exclude social media platforms from any digital transformation initiative. And while we are integrating it in upstream activities, such as initiating a request, filing a complaint, or tracking the application filed. At the same time, uh, organizations reaching out to the citizen or customers as a means of posting messages back to the customer on their social media handles. But what we are also doing is that we are also working on making organizations more and more compliant by extending record management even to social media content. And this is a unique differentiator in our offering. These technologies we've also integrated into the search and the mining capability in our platform. And right from the more traditional means of searches like metadata driven, property driven, or keyword driven, now it also has a capability augmented with NLP or artificial intelligence to do searches where a suggestion or a more related content entity graph for navigating to the relevant information, finding skill based uh, expertise. They're all now available as part of the integrated content management suite. Now, when we talk about user adoption, uh, we see that our persona driven implementation approach is working quite well. What it does is that it limits the complexity of records management for creating those classification structures or making that those configuring those retention policies limited to record managers or policy administrators, while end user have a convenient means of interfacing with the system in a more uh, through a more simple and easy to use interfaces or through uh, the applications they use every day. So here are some personas that we find when we implement a content management at a large scale. So we have end users, we have record officers, we have record administrators, and then we have system administrator as a role. Along with using the application through out of the box available web interfaces, end users can also access the entire functionality of content management from the productivity applications like Outlook. So here is an example where a user is filing an email as a record directly from the Outlook. He can also search all the relevant record from content repository uh, from within the Outlook interface. The similar integrations are available for other applications like Microsoft SharePoint or Windows Explorer. The other persona, record officer, can cross-check all the record, can do the routine activity of filing record, reorganizing record. While the more complex activities like managing policies, defining policies, which are comparatively less frequent, are uh, available as a separate interface to policy administrator. He can create a retention rule, for example. He can modify a retention rule, and what it helps is that it can really help one the deployment and the provisioning of this feature to respective persona. Two, the whole training and enablement program can also be aligned accordingly. Here is one more example of system administrator who is doing things like managing user group permission and authorization in the system. Next is some of the special features that we are working on specifically for Singapore and uh, Asia Pacific customer. NAS reporting is one of those features where record comprising of file, document, metadata can be directly exported for transfer to National Archive Singapore. This involves managing lifecycle, export in specific format, and then having a secure means of electronic transfer. Email management and filing is enriching our integration with email client to give a unified interface for end users. to manage their email record. It supports direct filing, it supports rule-based filing, it supports auto filing of email if there is a thread which is going on. Uh, it supports automatic metadata tagging to the record. And there are then extended capabilities as we spoke about, where we can do the record management for SharePoint or record management for email and other prominent applications. Now, one thing that COVID-led pandemic has made all of us realize that every software application now onwards will have to support remote working or working from home, as we see. However, when we try to open such applications or data to remote working, we come across several challenges, especially with respect to security and privacy. Our platform has built-in support for content encryption, operation on secure layer, strong authentication policies, certification of security standards like OWASP, and this is basically the extensive audit log capturing. These are all makes it very safe and secure to use. On the privacy front, uh, identifying personal and sensitive information, ability to mask data or redact data basis uh, the information, ability to keep two copies of data if needed, one for public domain, one for limited uh, consumption, and certifications and adherence to standards like PDPA and GDPR. What it does is that it gives a much needed comfort to our customers that they can safely open it for remote working. And on this solid foundation, we are building more and more features like uh, making all the interactions web enabled, coming out with more and more innovative mobile applications, facilities like real-time collaborative collaboration, offline working, and centralizing reporting. These are all making it a great enabler for remote working. And just before I close my presentation, I just want to talk about some of our experiences and want to highlight some case studies very quickly. A city in United States is using our DoD certified record management platform for all range of records, for entire range of record. A public sector agency in Singapore uh, is also using our full uh, content management suite. It has use cases where highly confidential content is managed with a lot of tight security measures taken. Uh, there are use cases of online collaborative editing, uh, offline working as well. Another example is a example from a agency in Victoria State in Australia, where a customer is using it for automating the bond lodgement, tenancy bond lodgement process, and then thereafter maintaining and managing it for long term. This implementation is certified for VERS. In the beginning, as I said, this is a very prominent record management standard in Australia. We are also doing a very large scale record management implementation for National Archive in a country in Middle East, where National Archive along with 18 ministries are using our workflow and record management system. This is hosted on Gov Cloud, and we are expecting about 5,000 users to work concurrently on this system. And I want to emphasize on our experience of migrating from old and legacy applications. And this is also very important for our Singapore and Asia Pacific customer, where we see more and more requirements of modernizing their uh, older or legacy record management system. We have successfully migrated systems from uh, having built on the earlier versions of Documentum, FileNet, SharePoint, HP Trim, OpenText, the whole range of innovative migration framework which can analyze content, find duplicate information, find sensitive information, do data cleansing, and then import it in a more organized and modern content repositories. I had spoken about our global certifications and core competencies in the beginning, and that is what I think makes us a great choice for our customer. And just to summarize and end my presentation, that uh, while making the customers more agile and flexible in their content management approach using our configurable end-to-end content management suite, this also ensures adherence with the regulatory compliance and fast adoption with the approaches that I tried to highlight in my presentation. I think with that, I would like to close my presentation and we can open it for question and answer. Ruchika, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Arpan. Thank you, Cheryl, for all the help that has been given by you. The insights were very, very interesting. Now let's take the first question. The first question is for you, Cheryl, and the question is, could you specify any striking trends that you would have noticed in the developed countries like USA that were related to records management? Did you see any urgency in the adoption pattern like the rest of the world?
Oh, interesting question. So you mentioned earlier in the presentation, the DoD 5015.2 standard, which has been there for many years. But I think there's also some interesting innovation, especially in U.S. government, first around things like email capture. It's been a few years now, but this whole idea of capturing email and, automatically applying retention policies based on the seniority of the executive or the head of the department that creating it, what they call their capstone approach. So a way of bringing more automation into email capture and ensuring that the right life cycle is kept on it. So things that are less important can be disposed of in a timely fashion, but things that have long-term value, records of decisions, are being kept more proactively. And then building on the foundation of the 5015 standard mentioned earlier, taking kind of a life cycle approach to records management. What I've heard NARA, the U.S. National Archives, refer to as their universal approach to electronic records. So thinking about the metadata requirements, kind of separating the container from the content, recognizing that there's a lot of born digital content, and the goal is to only accept electronic records in the very near future. Again, working diligently to kind of remove any kind of dependence on paper. So that whole capture and preservation of digital records, making sure they can be preserved for the long term. I think this is where there's some really interesting, not only standards and policy development, but recognizing that this digital information needs to be invested in so it is retrievable and usable decades in the future.
Great, thanks, Cheryl. The next question is for you, Arpan. Can you suggest the biggest key differentiators that Newgen solution has vis-a-vis the other players in the market?
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest differentiator that we offer is basically the integrated end-to-end suite, right from multi-channel capture, multi-format capture of content. Uh, I think, uh, have given a lot of emphasis on the document and the content which are born digital. And we also understood in this presentation initially through Cheryl and later through some examples that how a paper can become a bottleneck. So the entire range of content, whether it is structured or unstructured, and ability to cover the entire life cycle of the content in a more unified way, more integrated way. And then having a means of new technologies setting on top of the solid foundational activities for content mining, for RPA, like for automating mundane activities, uh, just an example to highlight my point. Even when it comes to RPA, we have a unified modeling environment for scripting a bot, for deploying a bot, for managing a bot. So what it does is that it gives a single integrated unified strategies for policymakers, for decision makers, information workers in a large organization, and they also are now I think free to select any deployment means, whether in premise or on cloud, or use them as a microservices in their own business apps. This integrated approach is something that is very uh, unique selling point from, in my opinion.
Great. The next question, which I think anyone can of you take, I think Arpan, it's for you mostly. So how's Newgen positioning with SharePoint or SharePoint Office 365, since SharePoint also have record management feature?
See, I think record management, as we see, is basically is very very useful for a work group usage. So when I go and meet customers, especially the customers who are operating at a very large scale and they need their uh, comprehensive content management strategies, we often come across cases where we find that there are several SharePoint repositories which are running in an organization, and uh, various different projects have started a new SharePoint site. They do collaboration. It works very well for them during the life cycle of this that project. But what happens is that once the project is done, or during the time the project is running, there are some content which now becomes candidate for to be treated as organizational asset, but they are not promoted to somewhere in a enterprise content management repository. So what we have to offer is that we can then uh, sits in the ecosystem of all such different federated repositories, including SharePoint as one. We can really play the role of a true enterprise content management repositories with all the advanced features that we have in our content management suite. The content can from a SharePoint can be promoted to the enterprise content management repository either through manual intervention by user or through a means of putting policies there. We support federated searches from SharePoint. We support the record management extended capabilities for SharePoint as well. So while SharePoint also has some flavor of record management capabilities, but the way it evolves in an organization, these capabilities gets limited to a very small pockets. Whereas what enterprise need is a unified and enterprise level content management structure. So I think that is how we complement each other in a way.
Great. Thank you, Arpan. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Arpan, for all the valuable insights that you guys have given us on records management today. Thank you to the entire audience for all your valuable time and tremendous response. We shall be sending across presentation and transcripts and all the questions to you. Goodbye and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.